Hi. So I'm getting old very quick, so now I need to use glasses if I want to be able to read. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak here, and it is a very great honor and a privilege to share the stage with such amazing women. There is a saying in the caretaking industry in Iceland, að hlaupa hraðar, to run faster. When I was working in the preschool and we were trying to swim through the tar that our lives and our working conditions had become, with economic hardships at home and austerity measures inflicted upon us at work, so the glorious restructuring of Iceland's economy could continue, this is what we said to each other. Við kettlingarnar hlaupum bara hraðar. Us crones will just run faster. And I remember one day some years ago when doing some random revolutionary research, I came across this sentence in a text called Women's Oppression in Capitalist Society, written by the Anti-Sexism Work Group of the Boston Political Collective and published in 1981. At this point, we are like Alice in Wonderland upon the chessboard, having to run as fast as we possibly can to stay in the same place. And when I started working at Efling Union, this saying was one of the first things I heard, to run faster. The women who came to the union from the caretaking sectors all used the same term to describe how hard it was to keep going, how tired they were, how stressed, how exhausted they were from constantly running faster. Running faster to stay in the same place is extremely tiresome, let me tell you. If a woman is endlessly engaged in running faster and faster just to survive, just to stay in the same place, when will she find the time and the energy to contemplate, put into words, tell about what she has experienced and suffered? And what platform, thank you, and what platform is offered to the woman who, because of class, origin, language, has no platform to speak from and is too busy running to survive to construct one for herself? And why should a woman, marginalized and exploited and exhausted, completely occupied with getting through an existence filled with difficulties, even want to speak about her suffering? Sometimes you are so tired from running to stay in the same place that speaking, that most human of all human activity, is too hard. Sometimes you are too tired to even say, "Me too." A few days ago, I talked to a fellow worker woman, an immigrant, about the question posed here: has the Me Too movement benefited all women? We agreed that yes, it has, because now we can openly speak of, at least with each other, about what has happened to us, what the fact that we are women has brought into our lives. We can say things like, when I was working abroad, I used to sleep with scissors under my pillow because a man with keys kept entering the place I was staying to try to have sex with me. Or we can say, a man I worked with once cut the tires of my car because I didn't want to have sex with him. And so on, you know how it goes. And then I asked if she thought things had changed because of the Me Too movement for the women who exist near the bottom or at the bottom of the hierarchy. And she said, no, not at all. And I agree. I want to use this platform that I have been offered to talk about why I believe, as my friend and comrade does, that the Me Too movement has not changed the reality of the lives of these women. I want to talk about privilege, structural issues, hypocrisy, state-sanctioned violence, anger, and the running women of Iceland. If a person, a woman, has seen and does admit that there is a structural problem that exists and that affects her, if she personally has experienced structural sexism, should that not compel her to look further, to see and to admit that there are other horrible structural issues that can affect and even ruin lives. And if this woman has a privileged position in society, should she not realize that those structural injustices that affect her, even though she is educated, white, affluent with status and power, these things so fetishized and greedily wanted, that these structural injustices affect her, will she not see that they will affect those who have none of those things 1,000,000 times worse? Is it not hypocritical to only admit structural injustices when they hold you personally back, but not to think even twice about enforcing upon women who have no privilege incredible structural cruelties to make their lives infinitely more hard than they should be? To actually make it more likely that they become victims of violence, even as you yourself celebrate the MeToo movement and the opportunity it has afforded you to talk about the gendered abuse you have encountered. For the running women of Iceland, the fact that women can and do hold positions of power has not made life better. For them, the fact that women in positions of power participated in the MeToo movement has not made them safer from oppression or exploitation, and that is a fact. I felt anger while I was writing this text. I do feel anger a lot. I feel it when I talk to the young immigrant woman who has no choice but to rent a small apartment that is furiously expensive because our housing situation has been put in the hands of the owners of capital to use as their own personal plaything, and the landlord has a habit of showing up unannounced at nighttime. I feel it when I think about the elderly woman who can no longer work because of a mental illness and is made to live in poverty, thinking desperately about every last krona she has, which does not contribute to good mental health. I feel it when I think about the young single mother making a living caring for the children of others to have income to take care of her own daughter and coming to the realization that the system, while exploiting her and her working power, could literally not care less about her fate. I feel it when I talk to the woman who has been constantly working from when she was a child and is now getting old and her health is failing, but she cannot afford to stop working because she lost her home in the capitalist economic crash and has to rent. And can anyone explain to her how she will get the money to pay for the rent if she stops working? I feel it when I talk to the immigrant woman who is now divorced and has her children with her every other week, and her income from working in the care sector is so low that she works a second job so she can at least take her kids out for ice cream when they stay with her. I feel it when I talk to and think about the women who are victims of this cruel economic system they are forced to suffer under, where only some women are deemed worthy of personal and economic freedom. Only some women are diverse enough to have a say in society. Only some women's stories are of interest. Only some women's lives are worth celebrating. And only some women's lives are worth saving. I feel it when I think about the fates of the women of color who seek shelter here, the women like Evelyn Omas, who had to suffer through having intimate personal facts revealed in the media and also lies about her life because those in power saw nothing wrong with using her as a pawn in a cruel and deprived attempt to control the narrative about asylum seekers in Iceland, and Isikor Osasi, a woman literally kidnapped in front of her husband and thrown in jail by the police authorities while trying to comply with the authoritarian rules of the Icelandic asylum system. I feel it when I think about the future that awaits the little girl deemed unworthy by our authorities to live here and who are sent away like trash, like something you throw away and have already forgotten the moment you do so. I feel it when I, again and again, come face to face with the cruel hypocrisy that is embedded in the narrative about Iceland as a woman's paradise. Indeed, a paradise for the women who have just the right amount of diversity to be celebrated, and then the incredibly, amazingly diverse group of the women at the bottom of the hierarchy, who are actually so damn diverse that it makes the ruling class get a furious headache that they can only cure by doling out that they can only cure by doling out more of the endlessly same medicine, ensuring stability in Iceland so commerce can thrive, because nothing will set the ladies free like the blessed freedom of the capitalist market, and implementing diversity, the unbelievably bland, unappetizing, dualistic kind being offered up. Put a white, educated, affluent Icelandic woman where before you had a white, educated, affluent Icelandic man. Yesterday, Angela Davis spoke the truth. Of course she did. The truth that many of us have yearned to hear spoken from the big public platform when she said, women cannot simply aspire to take the places of men. And she went on and said, too often we assume that the structures can remain intact, and by simply replacing women in positions of power previously occupied by men, the world will change. But I have news for you. It will remain exactly as before. If we simply want to become what white, straight, cis, powerful men have been in the past, we are replicating the hetero-patriarchal structure that will continue to perpetrate the violence we are challenging. I felt almost euphoric when she spoke those words, and I know that I was not the only one. And I want to say, the worst thing imaginable for low-income working-class women, marginalized women, all the running women in Iceland and all over the world, is that if we are tricked into believing that our cause is a common cause with those who rule over us. This crude form of identity politics that Angela Davis criticizes only obscures for low-income and no-income women that we indeed are dealing with huge issues and structural injustices that no mere changing of the gender of those who rule will tackle. Only us getting power ourselves will change our lives. That is the true fact of the matter. Let us not ever be fooled to think that replicating what rulers have done before makes anyone fit to rule. Let us not participate in replicating misery and injustice for some and wealth and power for others. Let us not take whatever is handed to us as justice and progress. Let's only accept real justice, real progress, real empowerment, and real power. And let's not stop at the threshold of the house we are engaged in dismantling. Let's not be satisfied with only breaking the windows so the rulers inside are at least forced to acknowledge we exist. No, let's keep going, hammers in hand, dismantling as we push on, push further, dismantling the whole hetero, patriarchal, capitalist, racist structure that keeps us running just to stay in the same place. Let us join hands. Let us join hands, us propertyless, low-income, no-income, working-class, immigrant, asylum-seeking, disabled, sick from work, sick from tiredness, sick of running women, using what we have learned in the school of life that we have certainly attended, never missing a day. Using what we have learned surviving in the hostile environment of a cruel class-based society, using what we have learned while being exploited by the system, using what we have learned when we looked in the mirror and we realized that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow would just bring us more of the same. Using our broken hearts and the outrage and the anger we feel when confronted with the injustices perpetrated by the state and the status quo, let's bind our class struggle with our boundary struggle and keep pushing forward through the tar, never stopping, in solidarity together in the emancipation struggle that we know we need if we are ever to find a place where we can finally rest, where we can finally stop running. Low-income women, marginalized women, asylum-seeking women do not need MeToo to become a symbolic structure in society, owned by the ones who own everything and therefore think everything is there to own. We don't need it to become just another peace tower for the powerful and the privileged to warm themselves by, a beacon that leads us nowhere. What we do need is for it to become, and what it can still become, is a hammer in our hands, one we will use to break free from the systems of oppression and exploitation that keep us running faster just to stay in the same place. Thank you very much.